Hey everyone, it's Jack. Let's talk about All-Stars 9 because we have to. I'm just kidding, there's a lot we can talk about with this season. Mostly with the last couple episodes and how much emotion they seem to have caused. I'm not going to sit here and be all peaceful and say it's fine and it's all for charity. I think that charity argument starts and stops at the fact that they were each given $25K to appear and $50K for runways or some reverse of that. Only one person gets the title, but all of their pockets benefit from being on this season. And of course, their charities get the benefit too, which is really great. So yes, one title, but everyone kind of won in the end, if that makes sense. Just because a season is for charity, it doesn't mean that it's saved from criticism. In fact, I think we should be more critical in some areas, because what I'm seeing with seasons like All-Stars 7 and All-Stars 9 is a very positive wash that is sprayed all over the season. I mentioned in my last video on All-Stars 9 how Drag Race was kind of thrust into the spotlight and just put on the general population's radar when it comes to a bunch of different issues in the world. This idea deserves its own video at some point, but Drag Race is just the #1 lens for queer experiences on TV. And it's clear that they found a lot of success with this positive depiction. I mean, it's working so well that the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, appeared on this most recent episode. And say what you want about politicians, I have my thoughts, but just putting this into perspective, it is pretty insane. We've also had people like Nancy Pelosi and Justin Trudeau appear. The reach Drag Race has grown exponentially, and you really can't deny it at this point. And I do think it all comes back to how they're depicting these entertainers on screen. I think it's very clear that longtime fans know the grit and the drama seen in the older seasons is just not the same nowadays. A lot of people tuned in to the older seasons of Drag Race for the cattiness, for the bad performances along with the good performances. That grit and that drama is what keeps a lot of people engaged. And I think the questions we should be asking are these elements still viable for Drag Race and vital for like the success of the show? Because a lot of the drama in particular has negatively affected the lives of many of the queens. It's really hard to find the right answer and ride the line. I think one side of the spectrum is a lot more authentic, allowing the queens to not be the most perfect people. The depictions aren't the best, but I think that creates more entertaining TV. Social media is the other factor that I think affects the side and why they are swaying away from this type of depiction. While the complete other side of the spectrum is where we find ourselves with All-Stars 9, a season that really lacks the grit and the drama to make a lot of people continue to watch. Also, only a portion of y'all are subscribed, so if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. Like the video, leave a comment below, all of it helps to support me at the end of the day. Going into the season, much like the season itself, I was remaining blindly positive. After seeing the cast, I was feeling like they could turn out a really interesting season. Instead, I think we got a lot of the lesser parts we saw on All-Stars 7 rehashed, even down to the 3-star twist at the end. To be honest, I am not shocked that they did something like this again. It's a way to keep all of the queens engaged up until the last episode because it seemed like some of them were checking out in certain parts of the season. And what's interesting is before the 3-star twist, but after I posted my last video, we had Jorgeous and Chanel giving out more badges, or giving them to each other, I guess, and that really shook up the numbers at that point in the competition. I do think they could have ended up with the endgame that they wanted while still shaking up the stars throughout the season. I was the most engaged after the Rusical episode because Jorgeous all of a sudden became a frontrunner, and I think there could have been other points on the season to really shake it up as well. We saw Nina and Mick give out badges after Snatch Game, Jorgeous won a badge in a mini challenge, and I think that's it for the badges otherwise. I think people randomly picking up a lot of steam in the competition is really interesting. What's not interesting is giving 3 stars out right at the end where no one else can do really anything about it. After these 2 seasons with the 3-star twist, it's clear that it is the deciding factor for most of the competition. Whoever's in the top with those 3 stars, they are making it to the end, congratulations. And it's done on the talent show, which after thinking about it, I don't think that the majority of the fans have ever really agreed with the results, at least for a really long time. Whatever the fans are looking for in these talent shows, it's clear that the judges aren't looking for the same thing. I think Angie and Vanjie did a wonderful job, as everyone else did in the talent show, which is the main reason why I think they could have really justified anyone being there. Superfans of Drag Race have seen almost, if not every talent show, and what is going to catch our eye is something we haven't seen before. So when Plastique pulls out these lightsabers and has spark boobs, and Chanel juggles actual knives, there's going to be a lot more reaction to that and expectation that they're going to be in the top. Competition wise, I don't think we're ever going to be on the same page for the talent show, and I think it's just kind of died out on me. I still love it for the concept because it's great that these queens get to introduce themselves or showcase themselves, but judging has just never been consistent, and having it at the end really reveals a lot about what they want to do with the show. To me, I always expected a Roxy and Angeria toss-up, with Plastique also being there. Vanjie being in the top makes me so happy as a Vanjie fan, but with the other people she was going up against, it was just harder to see her as the winner. Based off of performance in the competition, I thought Roxy, Angeria, and Plastique. Based off of storyline, I would think Roxy and Angeria, and then amazingly Chanel. All three of their storylines would have had a really great cap off in the finale. And just thinking about Chanel making it after not getting a badge for so long would be so cool. We got like 2 out of 3 of what I expected, and I really do plead people to go back and watch this season and see how good Angie did. There was no point where she ever really faded into the background, maybe like the last 2 episodes before the talent show, but before that it was win after high placement. She was doing so good. And again, she was the one that was blocked the most, but though that brings me to my next point, the twists on the season basically did nothing. Roxy and Vanjie getting stars in episode 4 was the main thing that had a big effect on the season because it helped both of them get to the finale. But that's like barely a twist, it's just a way to keep the competition interesting. The Ruby Snippers and this double diamond thing, they just did nothing for the competition. The very least you can say is that the Ruby Snippers served as the central drama for the season. But for them to not once play an actual role in the actual use of the Snippers, like the fact that if you wanted to just take the Snippers out of the season and nothing would change, that is crazy. And now that we had the potions, the Ruby Snippers, and the double diamond back to back to back, I really hope the producers don't take it as a sign to up the twists. I hope they take it as a sign to go back to the drawing board and think maybe we shouldn't do some twists for a couple seasons, or why do we have twists on the show? I get why they have twists in a lot of scenarios, especially for a show like Drag Race that's been airing for this long. The double diamond twist in particular is gonna go down as one of those Twitter things you see where they're like, you remember this happened? It was used as the cliffhanger of part 1 to keep people engaged at the end, and then it really amounted to nothing with them being like, okay Nina, well now you have 4, that's it. And of course, I don't want any more production meddling. If a twist doesn't work, that means that production didn't really have their hands in it. And in some ways, that's good. But then you get this extremely lackluster scenario where they're like, okay, good job, now go sit down, when they didn't need to have the twist in the first place. This isn't central to All Stars 9. I think it's been a problem that has been affecting all of Drag Race for a while. The twists that we see on the season are now becoming the predictable thing to the standard Drag Race that we normally expect. This could get its own video, but just for the sake of this video, an example would be like a Q or a Marsha going home. The twist to the episode would be a double Shantae, but it's honestly more shocking when we see them actually go home. We more often expect the standard competition rules to be broken as opposed to them actually being eliminated in some cases. And that's true for All Stars as well. I didn't want them to do a 3-star twist, but I expected it because they needed to shake things up. It's tough because some of the seasons where they didn't shake anything up, like All Stars 5 or 8, I mean those are some of the lowest rated seasons, but I don't think the twists from most of the All Star seasons are what people really remembered outside of like All Stars 6 probably. They do these twists to keep things fresh, but at the frequency that they're happening, it's honestly making things more stale. And I just wish they would have more of a security in their formats because their formats are genuinely perfect as is. I do think twists are here to stay on the show, it's just something that's inherently going to happen. But like I said earlier, like with season 15, maybe they could take a step back from the twist for just a second and just put on a really great season of TV. In that great season of TV, I do see remnants of it in All Stars 9. I feel like in general, I try to stay positive and just find things to appreciate on the season. If I'm not enjoying the episodes, I'll turn my brain off and just look at the bright colors. The queens and their personalities are always what keeps me engaged up until the end, even if the structure around them is something that I'm not agreeing with. I had a ton of appreciation for each of these entertainers going into the season, and I left the season enjoying them even more. I think the cast's chemistry kind of went in and out, but came all together at the end. It's really hard to tell how 8 queens are going to be in a room for 12 weeks. They just needed some time to warm up to each other, and I think casting was looking more at their individual talents than how they would be in a group. They all bring such unique talents to the table, and I don't think a lot of people were confident in this cast going in, but they proved themselves for sure. And there's people on here that I honestly thought we would never see back, like Roxy, Mick, or Nina. So even if non-elimination is not something that I or most people want to stick around, it did help bring back a lot of queens that I don't think we expected to see back. I guess the last thing that I want to touch on is the last couple episodes and their ratings. I want to do a full video on the lowest rated Drag Race episodes, kind of explain why, debate whether they should be there, and I'm debating already right now whether these last 2 episodes should be there. We've already seen this happen before with a part 1 and 2. It already happened on season 15 where part 1 didn't result in anything major. The big thing that was different and caused much less of a reaction was that season 15 was aired back to back. The part 1 of the All Stars 9 finale was the most filler Drag Race episode I think we've ever seen outside of like reunions, but those don't even count. An episode smacked right at the end of the competition where they had a ton of momentum after the lip sync smackdown, and it's basically a whole episode of mini challenges and interviews. Love hearing from these queens, love the mini challenges. It shows off their personalities and they could be super entertaining. Having this air a week apart from part 2 was genuinely crazy and such a terrible decision. And it just adds extra insult to injury that 2 of the highest rated episodes of the season aired right before this one. I understand that they just had an episode quota to reach, and this is just the way distribution worked out. It's odd to me because it is on a streaming service, so not dropping the last 2 episodes like they dropped the first 2 episodes, I don't know why they couldn't just do that. It's probably some contract thing. They gotta do what they gotta do, but having this week gap into another episode that was pretty controversial to some fans, a lot of people are gonna remember All Stars 9 not very fondly now. Drag Race is in the later years of its life, and I do think it has a lot of good years left. This type of format I think was gonna happen one way or another, especially this late into the game. It was an experiment, the fans didn't really enjoy it, I think we can just move on from here. My big things for the future, I want eliminations back, as most people do. The big thing for me, at least, is hoping All Stars is gonna get off of Paramount Plus. I think this streaming service was the reason that Drag Race was able to do a charity season like this and donate that much money, and again, that's great, but we truly just need to bring All Stars back to live TV. Episodes dropping at like 12 or 3 a.m. on the Friday, people waking up to spoilers and being mad, that just doesn't create natural hype like a viewing party does. Drag Race in a lot of ways has really bolstered the nightlife scene. This is a good and bad thing, but when you see something like All Stars having the potential to air at a good time and then it just doesn't, it just feels like a lot of wasted potential and a lot of killed hype. And I think that's more down to Paramount, and when they choose to drop the episodes, I just wish they could really have more control. But I always like to say that World of Wonder and production likes to experiment, but they always come back a little bit stronger. So I feel like they heard a lot of the criticism for this season. They'll take the good things, eliminate the bad things, and I think they're gonna come back stronger for All Stars 10, which I know is coming next year. That's about all I got to say. Congratulations to Angeria. Thank you to all 8 of the queens for a really fun season. Spread some love out there. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon with another video.